Let's talk about the story behind the world's most luxurious car brand, because honestly, it is so unbelievable, it just proves that sometimes real life is way, way more incredible than anything you could make up.
You know, Rolls-Royce isn't just a car. It's the global symbol for absolute perfection. It stands for flawless engineering and the very peak of luxury. Owning one isn't really about getting from A to B. It's a statement.
So that brings us to the big question, the one that makes this story so compelling. How does a journey that starts with a little boy selling newspapers on the street just to survive end with the creation of the most elegant, most desired car brand in history?
Well, the whole thing starts with one of the founders, a man who literally built an empire from nothing, Henry Royce. I mean, the odds against Henry Royce were just staggering. He was born into poverty, his family's business completely failed, and that forced him to start working at just 4 years old, scaring birds from a field. After his father died when he was 9, he was working 2 jobs, selling newspapers and delivering telegrams just to put food on the table. With only 2 years of actual school, his future looked incredibly bleak.
But then, a moment of grace. His aunt, who saw how resilient he was, scraped together 20 pounds, which was a huge amount of money back then, for an apprenticeship with a railway company. And it was there, surrounded by all that machinery, that Royce found his true calling in mechanical engineering.
And his drive was just relentless. After his apprenticeship money ran out and his first job at an electric company went bankrupt, he didn't quit. At just 21, with only 20 pounds in his pocket, he started his own company. He and his partner actually lived and worked out of a tiny workshop, sleeping in hammocks for a whole year. And their big breakthrough came from something you'd never expect: a better electric doorbell. That simple invention became the foundation of a multi-million-dollar business.
For Royce, this wasn't just a job, it was a total obsession, and it was defined by this one simple principle: take the best that exists and make it better. He wasn't happy just making things, he had to perfect them. And that obsession with perfection, well, it was about to lead him down a whole new path.
So, while Royce is building his company from scratch, another young man, from the complete opposite end of the social spectrum, is about to walk into his life and change absolutely everything.
You literally could not have imagined 2 more different people. Royce was the self-taught, quiet genius who came from nothing. And then you have Charles Rolls, born into a wealthy family, educated at Cambridge, a charismatic salesman, and a total adrenaline junkie racer they called Dirty Rolls because he loved tinkering with engines so much.
Rolls was crazy about cars. He owned one of the very first ones in all of Wales, and he turned that passion into a business, opening a successful dealership in London. But he had this one major frustration. He was only selling imported French and Belgian cars. He desperately wanted to find a high-quality British-made car he could be proud of. And that's when fate and Royce's obsession stepped in. On his doctor's advice to get some fresh air, Royce bought a car. And he hated it. It was noisy, unreliable, just poorly made. So what does he do? Guided by his motto, he decides to just make it better. He ends up redesigning the entire vehicle and creating his own prototype, the Royce 10. It was unbelievably quiet, smooth, and reliable, and it just so happened that a friend of Charles Rolls bought one.
Now, Rolls was skeptical at first. I mean, it only had a 2-cylinder engine, but his friend insisted. So in December 1904, they finally meet. Royce just hands Rolls the keys for a test drive. By the end of that ride, Rolls was completely sold. He drove back to London that very same night, woke up his partner, and declared that he'd found the greatest motor engineer in the world. The partnership was born right then and there.
So, with Royce's incredible engineering and Rolls's brilliant salesmanship, the new company immediately set out to create not just a good car, but the best car imaginable.
And they proved it with the legendary Silver Ghost. To show off its unmatched quality, their marketing director staged this incredible publicity stunt. They drove the car almost 15,000 miles nonstop, day and night for 2.5 months, without a single mechanical failure. Can you even imagine that?
A journalist covering this insane endurance test was so blown away, he coined a phrase that would define the company forever: the best car in the world. And you better believe Rolls-Royce immediately adopted that as their official slogan. The legend was born. But just as the company reached its first real peak of success, a series of just devastating blows threatened to destroy everything they had worked so hard to build.
I mean, the timeline here is just brutal. In 1910, Charles Rolls, who had become a passionate aviator, tragically died in a plane crash at just 33 years old. A year later,
Henry Royce was diagnosed with terminal cancer and given 3 months to live. And then, as if that wasn't enough, World War I breaks out and the market for expensive luxury cars completely disappears overnight.
The company was on the brink of total collapse. But Royce, who miraculously recovered and was working tirelessly from his home, saw an opportunity. The British government desperately needed reliable aircraft engines, so Royce and his team designed the Rolls-Royce Eagle. It was an absolute masterpiece of engineering that gave Allied pilots a huge advantage and was crucial to the war effort. Royce's genius had saved the company.
So, having survived an unbelievable tragedy and a world war, the company entered a new era, navigating the really turbulent decades of the 20th century.
And through the rest of the century, the company just kept innovating. The Phantom line cemented their status as ultra-luxurious. They even managed to survive the Great Depression, partly by acquiring their rival, Bentley. During World War II, they again pivoted to the war effort, building the legendary Merlin engines for the Spitfire fighters. But after the war, their own ambition became their downfall. The cost of developing a revolutionary new jet engine, the RB211, pushed them to their absolute financial limits, and in 1971, the unthinkable happened. Rolls-Royce declared bankruptcy.
The company was then nationalized by the British government just to save it, but this whole crisis actually set the stage for a really complex rebirth in the brand that we know today. Okay, so in 1998, things got really confusing. Volkswagen bought the car company, which included the factory, the iconic grille design, and the spirit of ecstasy on the hood. But here's the crazy twist. BMW had separately acquired the rights to the Rolls-Royce name and the logo from the Aero Engine Company. So VW could build the car, but they couldn't call it a Rolls-Royce. Eventually, they worked out a deal. BMW took full control of the Rolls-Royce car brand, and VW got to keep Bentley.
Under BMW's ownership, the brand was completely reborn. It all started with a Phantom 7 in 2003, and from there, Rolls-Royce re-established its dominance in the ultra-luxury market, expanding with models like the best-selling Cullinan SUV and reaching insane new heights of craftsmanship.
And that brings us to today. The price of their latest bespoke model, the La Rose Noire Droptail, is a staggering $30 million. It's a journey that just defies belief. From a little boy who sold newspapers for bread to a brand that creates $30 million works of art. It is the ultimate testament to an unrelenting obsession with taking the best that exists and making it even better.